Chaps, got this guy called Ash. Been connections on the whole LinkedIn thing for a little while. Really good copyright. I have to give him credit. But what flagged it up with Ash is, Ash, you did a post. I won't read it all, obviously, because of time. Where he was talking about where you was basically trying to change your skin color and change your faults. Well, not necessarily your faults, but how you see your faults.
Yeah.
The post was bloodied out. I'm going to skim through. I have got it here. I'm going to skim through it. Where basically it's to do with your skin. It's quite obvious. I don't mean that how that sounds.
No,
it's quite clear. I feel like I'm being a dick straight away. I don't mean that sounded straight away.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, but it's just clearly you've spent a long time not being happy with how you look. You've done the steroid creams, you've done UV treatments, all of this magic, blah, 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 blah. And I was thinking, okay, this is, I feel for this guy. But what hit me like a ton of bricks is when you went home to your missus and your missus was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you. And even now, actually, I'm not just like, there's just something about that line, mate.
Even me now, listening to that brings back that moment, and it makes me, it just makes me feel, all sorts of emotions. They're happy about it, but also taking me back to that kind of moment of change for me. It was, I mean, I actually wrote a post well before that about my skin condition. So let me give you a little bit of context about why I'm so vulnerable and open on LinkedIn. Is because it really changed my mindset and it really helped my confidence. Now, I've not always had this skin condition, and the skin condition, by the way, is called vitiligo. It's an autoimmune condition, and so from what I found out later after getting it a few years ago, it's a condition that lies dormant. It's an autoimmune condition, but different things can kick it off. They don't really fully know why. So I went through a very stressful time emotionally with my business, just a few personal things. And I thought I was handling it all well on the outside, but what I got told by the dermatologist was that you really don't know what's going on inside your body. And when you're kind of suppressing problems or think you're kind of brushing aside problems and not actually dealing with them, your inside of your body is just doing all sorts of things and it triggers off stress. So a long story short, that did kick off this dormant autoimmune vitiligo, and it started showing physically on my skin, which obviously then, all my life I've had brown skin, and then all of a sudden my skin starts changing slowly and slowly. And that is going to then start becoming even more stressful. You don't know what's happening. You don't know how to deal with it yourself, looking at yourself in the mirror, but also then going out to social events and with friends. And, it's like almost the elephant in the room. You don't want to talk about it straight away, but people are noticing what's happening. And all you want to do is not talk about it or pretending that it's not there. So it made me start like just canceling social events. Real confidence issues started. I mean, I've always been quite a confident guy, not loud and, arrogant, confident, just a quietly confident person happy about myself. But yeah, that had a real bad knock-on effect. And luckily, a lot of my clients are abroad, internationally based. But the thing is, I did have a lot of camera meetings, like video calls. So I then started making excuses not to be on camera. My battery's flat, or I can't do this meeting, or do you mind if we just take a voice call because I've got stuff going on in my house? And I just realized that just became a norm. And then one of my clients actually sent me an email saying, "What's going on? Why we've not seen you in ages?" And so it was obviously apparent. And I replied to her and I actually just told her everything on email. And she was really lovely. She was really nice about it. And that kind of put my confidence up a little bit. And I just thought, you know, people don't really care as much as you think they do. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's like you're telling yourself stories all the time, aren't you?
Yeah,
With anything, we're always telling ourselves stories that might not be the truth. And anyway, I was still kind of dealing with it. I was slowly coming out of my shell, but again, and facing the issues, but it was really still having a real effect on me. And my wife saw it as well, and she was like, "You need to see someone. You need, you know, it's you. You're not yourself. It's obviously bringing you down." Um, I never got like any kind of, you know, I didn't see any doctors or anything, so I never got any diagnosis about being depressed or anything. But and I know there's different levels of
yeah,
depression, but I definitely wasn't myself. And anyway, I decided I just didn't want to talk to anyone. I was the how I've always been. It's like, you know, I'd rather not talk about problems. For me, it made them worse. Just keep
yeah,
thinking about them. So I just, you know, distract myself. But then I realized my wife was right. And what I ended up doing was posting a post on LinkedIn. And it wasn't that post that you talked about, but it was another post just explaining my journey. And I decided to post on LinkedIn actually because it was the place that I didn't really care about too much. I kind of, you know, I wasn't too worried about LinkedIn. But I don't know why I thought that, but I wasn't. I wasn't a big social media guy. I wasn't on Facebook or anywhere. The only place really I was on LinkedIn, and I just wrote just from my heart. It was like a therapeutic post. It was a way of me talking about it, but not to anyone in particular. So kind of trying to get it out of my head. And I posted it, and I won't go into details of how,
yeah,
you know, how well it did, but it did really well in terms of, and when I measure how well something did in that context, it was the amount of people that sent me really nice messages of support and saying things how inspiring that post was for them. And then I realized, you know, how what a superpower that is, kind of just being embracing that and being a little bit more vulnerable. And that post actually, it sounded like I was telling people or advising people being yourself is the most important thing, but it actually wasn't to people, it was to for myself. So it was like me looking in the mirror, telling myself that it's all right to be you. Um, it was like almost like a dear diary entry, but
yeah,
out into the public. And I'm glad I did it because that really changed everything for me. However, you know, having said that, I was kind of I was you still have your ups and downs, and I still do some days, not necessarily about my skin, but it's just like, you know, sometimes you get to catch someone's eye, like you go shopping and they're just staring at you and things like that. So that kind of makes you, but other than that, it's just, yeah, it's something that has been a bad phase of my life, but in a way, probably the best thing that's happened to me in terms of just being fully me.
yeah.
So yeah, I know I rambled on a bit there.
Well, to be honest, mate, keep going. It's a brilliant video. I don't have to do nothing. I know you're doing all the work. But the main thing is, because I was speaking to my wife about it, and she was just like, I think we were talking about starers and all this kind of stuff. That's the trouble with people, isn't it? I do think most people who stare aren't being horrible. I think
No,
it's just
true.
because it's different. I think it's the reaction of how you deal with that, isn't it? But she goes to me. She said to me, "What's it?" She said,
Yeah,
like,
you're
"What
right.
if that was you? What would you do?" I went, "I'd probably ignore it and probably have a cry in the car or something, or rant in the car or something like that." But she was like, "I'd have a go at them." So does the people around you feel like they need to take that battle on themselves?
I'm more like you. Probably wouldn't. I might feel at that moment. I might feel something being stared at, and I know why I'm being stared at. but I'm totally with you with regards to, it's not always with malice that they're staring. It could be curiosity. It could be something different, and that's not a bad thing. Like a lot of the time when I do go around, um, little kids, really little tiny kids, they don't think a thing, right? But then you get slightly older kids, and they will stare. But again, it's not malice. It's like it's real. Like I've not seen this before, and it's great. And I'd love to see. I mean, today someone posted actually on LinkedIn, and they tagged me because the Vitiligo Society highlighted that Mattel, the toy company, are starting having different types of dolls, like different skin colors and stuff. And they're actually going to release a vitiligo Ken. So, and yeah. So, and I think the more people see it, whether it's in the street or in the media or something like that, toys with kids and stuff, it changes people's minds. But until then, it's going to be new. It's going to be different. And the fact that it is new and different and people are looking is not always a bad thing. It's not always, I mean, obviously name calling and bullying, that's I would obviously say something then and I would stand up for myself. But
I don't blame you.
you've just got to have kind of that I don't know, that awareness of the situation.
Well, I think it's picking your battles, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I do think sometimes the best way to win a battle is to not have it in the first place.
Yeah. And I've grew up. I mean, I was born in this country, and but when we were little, my dad wasn't, and I saw racism towards my dad and how he handled it. He usually handled it just ignoring it, and he was a tough guy. He wouldn't he 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 wouldn't ever back out of a fight if there was any physical harm to him or his family. But he would know how to physically pick his battles, and I saw that all the time. And then growing up as a kid as well, I had the racism. I got bullied as well, so I know how to deal with it. I've got into a few fights in my time when I was younger, and they never really usually end well. Even if you are the one that put up your fist and you knock someone out or something, it never ends well. Anyway, you don't really feel good about it at the end of the
I
day.
agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't solve a problem.
Well, and that's the thing. That's the thing is like violence and scrapping. I've had a few scraps in my time. It never actually resolves anything.
No, no. And
And
you just think, I think, yeah, that this is the thing. It's not solve the problem, and afterwards, you don't feel any better for it. In fact, you feel worse if anything. I think.
yeah. So can I ask you, what was like your tipping point? It sounds like your wife was a solid part of your journey, but by the sounds of it,
Yeah.
what was the tipping point where you're like, right, enough's enough now? I'm not going to hide. Like, when was your eureka moment? Is the term? Is it when?
Um. So for me, like my wife and daughter, while I've had this, it's weird because they've seen me go through this, so they've not really talked. We never really talked about it. Like, obviously, I'm her husband and I'm my daughter's dad. Like, they're never gonna, they're never gonna. I suppose they've seen me going through it, so they've been going through it as well. So it's not like it's not been an overnight change for them. So that post that you were talking about was before the one that I posted about kind of embracing myself. And the first part of it was first battle for me was actually to thinking like, what does my daughter think? What does my wife think? Although I really knew deep down, they didn't say anything, but it plays on your mind. Then you must think like, I'm not the same person. Like, um I never thought that they'd be embarrassed of it, but I just thought, my daughter goes to school. Is she going to deal with her friends asking her questions, which never happened, by the way, because I've had another conversation with my daughter after that as well, and a really nice one as well. But yeah, so the first battle was that. So and my wife's the type of person that will just like, you do what makes you feel happy, and she'll support me along the way. So, I was going to the dermatologist, I'm going to the doctors, and the hospitals were saying, try this UV light, or you can come in 3 times a week and we can start, you know, you lay on a kind of UV under a UV light for over an hour. And I was thinking, well, that just sounds like a lot of hassle. You know, I wanted to get it sorted, but I was also running a business at the same time as well. So I'm just like, I can't afford to do that. So I actually bought myself some UV lights. And there were times where you have to literally sit in a dark room. And I mentioned that in that post, you have to sit in a dark room and just shine this UV light with these dark goggles on you. And even that, you know, it was just like that. I'm an impatient person as well. And when you don't see the results happening straight away, you feel like it makes you feel even more worse. And then then there was topical creams and things like that. And all along, my wife was like, yeah, you know, you're handling it the way you want to handle it. That's fine. And I'm sure she wouldn't have, either way, she would have been fine. You know, if my skin came back naturally with this kind of UV light, she was like, if you're happy, Ash, then I'm happy. I'm sure that would have been her take on it. But when I had that camouflage clinic, it was weird. It was really, really weird, because you've kind of want it to be great. So when I had that makeup put on me at that clinic, so what they do is basically, just for the context of for context for your audience there, I drove to this place. I had an appointment with this lady who matched kind of skin tones like paint. It was like makeup, and she painted my skin, which you then take away these like pots of makeup, and you do it in the morning and wash it off at night, just like ladies' makeup, right? But it's meant to blend in with your skin, but it does really look like makeup, and it looks thick and it looks fake. It doesn't look natural at all. And there was a little bit of me thinking, that looks a bit weird, but you try convincing yourself that it is all right. And I'm like, I just wish I didn't have to do this, and I'm not fully happy, but I want to be happy. And I was kind of smiling away, pretending, you know, when you try forcing that happiness.
I run a mental health charity. We're geniuses at it.
Yeah,
putting that front on and pretending everything's okay and stuff like that. So
yeah, exactly. And then, yeah, it was just that moment when I came home, and my wife knew that wasn't me. She knew that wasn't the solution. She just turned around, she's saying, you know what? And that was the moment she said, because I was looking at her like, what do you think? And I don't know whether she saw it in me that I wasn't really properly happy, but she was like, no, Ash, it's not you. It's just not you. And yeah, honestly, I did have like a tear in my eye, and I did feel relieved that she said that. And it was like almost all that time we didn't really talk about it, but to this point, then she talked about it. It's like, you don't have to go through all that, Ash. You know, you're absolutely fine the way you are. And that, you know, that was just another stepping stone into just me being me, happy. Yeah, exactly. Completely content with me being around my family who thinks I'm absolutely fine the way I am. So,
because you know, the one thing I got just listening from you talk, and it's lovely actually just to hear someone just finding themselves. Because obviously we do talk about other topics which are quite harsh to listen to sometimes. But the one thing I will say that from this, my takeaway is actually the biggest judge in life is yourself.
100%.
Without question, like with you, I can see you get a lot of engagement, and I don't know what I was doing, like engagement and all this kind of stuff. And you're saying like barely anyone's really done anything or said anything other than the funny looks. You're gonna get that. You just have to deal with it, don't you? Like,
yeah,
I'm covered in. I'm not going to pretend I'm you, but I'm covered in tattoos, and you want to try walking it on when it's pensions day in Tesco's. They look at you really funny and all this. So I'm the thing. But I think
it's the transformation. Yeah, the transformation. But
there's a bee in here which has just decided to pop in, so I'm freaking out. So carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's that transformation, and it's that transformation is usually the stories you tell yourself. Like when you
Yeah,
have that's kind of the liberating part. It's like it really doesn't matter what other. It's easy. I know it's so easy to say it now that you've gone through it, but it really doesn't matter what other people think. It's about what you think of yourself. And once you conquer that journey, and it's up and down as well. I'm not
yeah,
saying like, I'll never have problems um about me, what how comfortable I am in my own skin now. Excuse the pun.
yeah.
But it is a game changer. It really is. So just working on that story you tell yourself should be the focus. And that's kind of what I help people with as well myself. So
And
yeah.
I think I think you do it very, very well, actually. So excuse me, I'm just looking around. It's just that bit. I'm just waiting to be like slaughtered by it. And I think what I was going before I got put off, actually, like even with your prime example, I'm looking at your one post. You've had what, well over 1,000 people liked it. And I don't know how many comments that you can't see beyond the camera. Even when we were Manup, I basically secretly announced my mental health due to Manup. So between us, there's a good few thousand people who have seen our stories without question, and no one's really judged us.
Mm.
We've judged ourselves, but no one's really judged us.
Yeah. And what it is when you share those stories, it obviously helps yourself as well. And it's therapeutic. That's how my first story started and my post starts. But don't ever underestimate the power of those stories helping others too. Like going back to that first post of mine, the people that were DMing me and commenting on that post, they didn't all have vitiligo, but they identified with those issues of not being happy with themselves, not really fully embracing who they are because they're not like everyone else. And those were the messages that I just thought, I was overwhelmed, and I just thought, this is beautiful. This is great, and we should share more stories because it helps other people as well to kind of validate that, like, yeah, I totally get that, and that helps me. It's inspiring.
Yeah, that was a good call, my friend. I'm
Loved
well
it.
aware you've got at 2 o'clock as well. So
Yeah, no, I loved it. I mean, we could talk on for ages, it seems, but
yeah,
thanks so much for having me, mate. It's
that's,
really appreciate it.
that's absolutely fine. Let me hit that record button when I can see it. Bear me 1 second.
Yeah.